We stand before an Aprilia RSV4, the first one in the Bay Area. Someone is kibitzing to my left off camera saying it's a factory something something.
It is a factory. The bike comes in two different models, the standard R model and then the factory model. The R is $15,999 and the factory is $20,999.
And we have the factory.
Yes, this is the hot model. And we've also, here at Moto Marin, have added some nice little features to the bike, such as these slider bar ends, and also we have the sliders down here on the spindles for the rear stand, and little carbon fiber bits here, and also carbon fiber on the stock pipe, on the stock exhaust pipe.
Very trick. Okay, and this is like the only one in California?
It's not the only one in California. There's a few around, but I believe most of them are sold, and this one's not. So it's first come, first serve. Whoever wants to get this one.
Call now. Operators are standing by. Moto Marin, Kerry Littell was here to take your call.
Yeah, the factory model, as I said, it's $5,000 more, and what you get for your $5,000 is variable intakes. You get the forged wheels. You get a lot of carbon fiber bits. And the biggest component of it is the Olin suspension, which Dave's going to go over.
Very cool. Well, thank you for letting us be around this beautiful thing today, this supermodel that you have. We will treat her with the greatest of care.
Well, we always like to see the guys from OTT down here at Moto Marin, so thank you very much.
Awesome.
We have the great pleasure and honor of being at Moto Marin here today, as they just took delivery of the Aprilia RSV4R factory. And what that basically means is you get a lot of components, adjustable engine mounts, and Olin suspension. And we're going to deal with all of that piece by piece. But for now, we're dealing with the showroom suspension series. And what we're going to do is put 3 people on the bike of varying weights. We will measure sag, tell you what the measurements are, and then make some broad recommendations as to if you were to buy this bike today and you weigh X, what should you expect when you ride it on the street? Let's start with the front forks. Normally you want to see in this range with somebody somewhere around 4 inches. And with Chris, 3.5 inches. So we need quite a bit of preload installed on the front forks. It's far too soft. He'd get a ton of brake dive. Let's go to the back of the bike. Compress the rear shock, let it sit. Take it from the rear axle mount. Okay, Chris, off you get. It's 21 inches to the light mount all the way, 21 inches. Hang on, Chris, come back. 22. Go ahead, lift it up under the subframe, right there, so we can get our free sag. Okay, let go. Okay, so we actually got 10 mil free sag, almost just shy of ½ inch. So with Chris on the back, our sag is right around 1.25 inches. So the back is fairly soft, but the front is really soft. So I'm guessing, because I can see a 9.5 spring in the rear, the preload on the front forks is quite soft in terms of amount of installed preload. Okay, Mr. Williams. We will use the same 2 points. And Dave is right at 180 pounds. And we are at just over 1.1 inches in the back. So still pretty stiff for street. And the front forks are very close with his weight, 3.75 inches, just a little more so. The front's much better suited to his weight, but again, the back seems a little stiff. Until we do a full analysis on this, we really won't know why. Thank you, sir. Okay, Michelle at 100 pounds. I have to be polite. She'll tell us later what it is. But it's not much more than that. But it gives us about a big weight variance, let's say that. So there's 1/2 inch sag in the back. Moving to the front, it's perfect in the front. So obviously if you are 100 to 130 pounds, the front forks will be fine, but the rear shock is going to be absolutely brutal. Now on our factory RSV4R, we have in the manual street settings and track settings that are very clearly set out. That also includes geometric settings in the chassis which respond to fork ride height in the front forks, and also the shock length eye to eye, because we have adjustable ride height. That will be based on the Pirelli tires that we have here, but realize that some tires are bigger and smaller than others, so the geometry in the chassis will have to change to reflect that tire geometry. So you may need to move the forks or the rear ride height based on tire circumference. So let's get into the street settings and the track settings for the forks and the shock. Fork preload is recommended at 8 turns in from full soft. Fork rebound suggested settings are 12 clicks out from full stiff, and fork compression 12 clicks out from full stiff. Geometry will stay at line number 2 as it is in the triple clamps currently. On the rear shock, you will leave it in its current position, which means the length of the shock is 310 millimeters. Rebound is 20 clicks out from full stiff. Compression is 12 clicks out from full stiff. For track settings, the rear shock needs to be 3 millimeters longer than stock, so you need to increase the ride height to 313 millimeters. Suggested rebound settings are 16 to 18 clicks out from full stiff, and compression settings 8 to 10 clicks out from full stiff. On the front forks, they request an additional turn of 1 in, which is stiffer, at 7 turns in, rebound at 8 to 10 clicks out from full stiff, and compression at 6 to 8 clicks out from full stiff, but the geometry remains the same with these tires at line number 2. Now, you always expect on a factory bike or top-of-the-line flagship bike for the spring rates front to rear to be as closely matched as possible. Why? Well, odds are that this bike will go to the track, and that's what it's been designed from. So in this case, we have a 9.5 rear spring and a set of 1.0 fork springs. So they're very close, they're within 1 rate of each other. The installed preload isn't huge on the rear shock, but the installed preload by change is very soft on the front forks with very few turns in. So when you brake with this current configuration, the back is going to stay stiffer than the front, and you might experience brake dive depending on your weight. To compensate for that, our showroom model has compression set at 17 clicks out from full stiff. So I think it's pretty certain that if you hit the brakes pretty aggressively, that you would get a lot of brake dive. So taking it off the showroom floor, the front end's much softer than the rear. The rear's set at 12 clicks out. And that's why in the showroom settings we did, there's an imbalance between front and rear. They do suggest in the manual that you change your fork and shock oil every 12,000 miles. That's much improved. Preferably it should be 5,000 miles for the forks and 10 for the shock, especially for a bike of this magnitude, which you want to have work perfectly. The oil level inside the forks is pretty high at 110 millimeters, but that's standard for a bike that is going to see track use. In looking at the way the bike is configured, the seat height is just over 33 inches tall. So it's actually pretty high in the back, which will shove your physical body weight just a little more forward onto the front end. So in just looking at the showroom, you know, if you're over 180, 200 pounds, you'll definitely want to add preload and compression to the front forks to balance the chassis out in terms of spring tension. And we definitely showed that with the heavier rider. A lot you can adjust, a lot you can play with, and there's many features here in terms of adjustability on the bike that we can go through for ergonomics. So let's go to that next.